Now you can pull the wheel off, or you can just turn the wheel to get it out of your way. I'm just going to use a 7mm socket. Take this bolt out here. There may be one right there, and take that one out as well. And then take a trim tool, and there's push pins. There's one right here. There should be two right there. Take those out. And there should be one right here as well. You can take that one out. Should be able to move this panel back. Just grab the bumper, slide it over here. You can pull this piece of the bumper out. You can access the negative battery terminal right here. Take a 10mm socket with an extension and disconnect the negative side. You don't want to disconnect the positive side. It's always better to disconnect the negative side so you don't arc anything out. Loosen this up. Couple turns. Should be able to grab the terminal and just wiggle it up and out of the way. I want to take this panel down. If you have this vehicle, you might have a panel that goes right here with other fasteners. This vehicle doesn't have it, but take that one down first. And I'm going to use a 7mm socket. Take all these screws out. And there's a push pin on both sides on the ends. Just take a straight blade screwdriver or a trim tool. Try to pry it out. If the push pin's not in too bad a shape, you can use a Phillips head screwdriver and loosen it up that way. Slide the center out and slide the other piece out. And there's a couple push pins right here. Take those out on both sides. Just use a trim tool. Slide the center part out. Slide that out. Underneath here, take these three 10mm bolts out. Just use a 10mm socket. Now I can grab this panel and just slide it out. Now on the passenger side of the radiator at the base, there is a drain. It's a pepcock. What I can use is some pliers or some needle nose just to try to loosen this up a little bit. Just be careful. And you want to make sure you do this when the engine is not hot. You don't want to do it when it's hot because it'll spray out. Just put a drain bucket underneath here. There we go. And it's starting to drain. I'll let that drain. From up top to make the coolant come out a little quicker, I'm going to take this coolant cap off. Just slide that off. Disconnect this connector right here. Just push down on the tab, slide it out. Loosen up this worm clamp. Take a straight blade screwdriver or an 8mm socket. Slide this snorkel off, just like that. Set it out of the way. Then we'll take this hose, this air tube breather, slide that off. Now I'm going to remove this bolt right here. It's a 10mm socket. Take this push pin off right here. Just use a trim tool. Get underneath here. Slide that out. We can grab the whole air box. Should be able to slide it straight up and pull it out. Now I'm going to remove any bolts on the side here. There's two right here. There may be one down here. We're going to take the bumper off. I'm going to use a 7mm socket. Take those out. And just grab the bumper right here. Just slide out. And it's clipped in all along here. Now I'll take these push pins out. If there was one right there, take that out. And then right there. Just use a trim tool. And take these ones off as well. And use a 10mm socket and take these two bolts out on the side. And I'm going to support the bumper when I do this. Take those out. And I can grab the bumper, lift up right here, and just slide it off. I'm going to take these two bolts out, use a 10mm socket. And this bracket is going to be loose right here. We can take this hose off right here. Sometimes you can just twist it off, or you might need a pick. And slide that over there. Now I'm going to disconnect the upper radiator hose from the radiator. I need to remove the hose clamp with some hose clamp pliers. Sometimes they break because they get pretty brittle. Now I'll just grab the radiator hose, wiggle it back and forth. You might have to get a pick in there and try to loosen it up. And you could just slide this out of the way. Now we're going to disconnect the fan electrical connectors. I'm just going to use a pick, get underneath the connector here. There's a little tab right there. Just get underneath it, slide it out, and then we'll do the same with the other one. Now I'm going to remove these harness retainers right here. Just use a trim tool. Slide these out. Oh, sometimes they break. Slide those out. Right there, and right here. Now I'm going to remove this connector. Just get behind here with the trim tool and slide that out. We'll disconnect the connector right here. You just push down on this tab. When you push that tab, then you can move this ratcheting mechanism and slide the connector out. Disconnect that. Then we can disconnect this connector right here. Just push down on that tab and try to slide it out. Sometimes you need a screwdriver to help out. There we go. And just slide this stuff out of the way. There's a wire retainer right here. You can try to use a trim tool, or I'm just going to use a pry bar to pry this off. Use some needle nose pliers. Just try to pull this off, and that's good. Get that out of the way. Now there's two screws, one right here. I'm going to use a T25. Remove that screw, and then same on the other side. One right there. Now I'm just going to try to pull the radiator and the fan shroud towards the inside of the car. You could use a little pry bar and just try to pry this down a little bit. If that gets stuck, do that on both sides. Now I'm just going to use a trim tool. There's some push pins in the top of the fan shroud. Just take those push pins out. Oh, sometimes they break. Alright, now we can separate that panel right there. A lot of those broke, so I'll just have to replace those with new ones. And then there's clips right here and on the other side. I'm just gonna try to grab the fan and push down on those clips, slide the fan shroud up. Do the same on this side. Just gotta take a pry bar, put a pry bar in here to hold the radiator and the condenser forward. Try to pry this out. There we go. If this wiring harness is in your way, you can remove these wire hold downs. I'm going to use a 1/4-inch socket and remove those. We can grab the wiring harness and just slide it out. And actually just slip it out over there and grab the fan and just slide it out. And there you go. I'll just pull this shield off right here, set it aside. Now I'm going to remove the lower radiator hose. I'm just going to use a cable style hose clamp remover. Just line that up on the hose clamp. I'll just move the hose clamp. Use a regular style hose clamp. Pliers makes it a little bit easier. With that loose, then I can just grab the radiator hose. I do have a drain bucket underneath in case any coolant comes out. And slide the hose off. A little bit of coolant. I'm going to remove these two bolts out of the front of the AC condenser. Now it's recommended that you remove the refrigerant out of the AC condenser and then disconnect these hoses and then do it that way. But if you don't have an AC machine, that's not going to be that easy. So I'm going to show you how to do it without removing the refrigerant. Take these bolts out, use a 10mm socket. And on this side. And there's one more bolt on the passenger side of the radiator that connects to this junction block for the AC system. I'm just going to use a 10mm ratchet wrench, get behind here, and pull that bolt out. With one hand, I'm just going to grab the top of the radiator and try to tilt it back a little bit, then grab the condenser, and we'll just slide it up over here, slide it up over there. Try to get it off these clips over here and off this clip right here. And just slide it forward a little bit. That's separated. Now that's going to stay right there. We can grab the radiator and just slide up. If you can get these mounts off, that would help. Get that mount off there. Get it off the other side as well. And just slide up on the radiator. Might have to move some stuff out of your way a little bit. Just be careful with the condenser. You don't want to stab it or anything. Sometimes taking off the lower rubber mount helps out. And get past the transmission lines. And just slide it out this way. And there you go. The new radiator, I'm going to install the clips pretty much where the old ones were on the old radiator. So match it up to the old one and install those. I am going to put these lower pads on because they are directional. So put these on the feet of the radiator and they go on like this. And same on the other side. I can take these covers off and slide the radiator pretty much the way it came out. Just be careful. If you struggle a lot in this area where these transmission cooler lines are, you could take those transmission cooler lines off and just reinstall them. And just slide that in position. Then you can come to the front. And I'll take the condenser, line the clip up over here. Right there. And do the same on this side. And on this side, it's the upper clip, not the lower clip. That's for different types of vehicles. And there we go. And we can slide these hold downs on the top, the rubber bushings. Just push the radiator forward, just be careful. You could put these on before you did the condenser if it's easier. Just like that. And same with this one. Just like that. Just want to make sure the feet are all the way down, those rubber bushings that go on the bottom of the radiator. Make sure those are in position. And we can slide this back. I'm going to get these bolts started on the outside first. And before I tighten those up, I want to get this one started on the inside. Then I'll tighten this one down first and then the front two. Now I'm going to reinstall this lower radiator hose. You could do this after you put the fan back in, but it might be kind of hard to get to. It's pretty easy to access it right now. And it's also a good idea to replace these hose clamps, but we're just going to reuse ours. Now I'll take the fan shroud, keep these wires out of the way, and just slide this in position. And there's clips on the bottom of the radiator that you have to clip those in. So make sure those line up. So this right here has to line up, and on the top, that one's got to line up as well on both sides. So with those lined up, then you can just take the fan shroud and just push it down. And it should click in place right there. Now I'll take this panel right here, line this up. I got some new push pins. Line those up, push them in. Now that's all in. Now we can push the radiator back in position. Just wiggle it from both sides. And there's a slot right there that a little tab's gonna come through. Might need to push it down a little bit. Just use a screwdriver. Just like that. Put the screws back in. I'll get that one started and get this one started as well. And tighten them down. Now get this harness lined up. We'll get this retainer installed right here. Press that on. And this harness, move this over. We'll get these screws back into the retainers, or the hold downs for the wiring harness. And tighten them down. I'll reconnect these connectors right here. Connect this big junction connector. And you push it in, then you fold this handle down, lock it in place. Then I can push it right there and connect these wires into position right there. Connect the connector for the fan. And right here. And lock that one in. Reinstall this coolant hose in position. Bracket is going to go under here. Oh. Goes under the wiring harness. Get that lined up. Get these two bolts started. Right there, right there. Tighten these down. Make sure you don't pinch the wiring harness. Now put the upper radiator hose back on over here with the hose clamp. And that's good. Just give it a wiggle, make sure it's tight. Take this hose that goes to the reservoir and slide that back on there. And we'll slide this bumper back in position. Make sure this is all lined up. Take the bolts. I'll get these two bolts started right here and right here. And before I tighten those up, I'll just get these push pins in. Now I'll tighten these bolts down. Now grab the bumper from the side. Just line everything up right here. Get that lined up there and tap it in. Now install these screws on the side here. And if you had another one down there, install that one. Tighten them up. Take the air box, get this lined up in position. It's two little tabs that line up on the bottom. Push down on those tabs, line the snorkel back up. And push this hose on right here, breather hose. We'll tighten this worm clamp down. And plug this connector in. Install the bolt right here, snug it up. And the push pin right here. Now reinstall the lower shield. Just slide this in position and install the screws. And tighten these up. And install these push pins on the corners. And put the push pins in right here on both sides. Lock them down. And then install these 3 bolts. Tighten them down. And then if you have another shield that goes right here, install that. Now we can reconnect the negative side of the battery. Just take the terminal, put it on the battery. Just take a 10mm socket and an extension. Get it on the battery terminal and tighten it up. And just grab the battery cable, make sure it's tight. That's good. Now it'll be a little bit easier to get this on if you put the inner shield in first. Line that up. And line the bumper back up. Alright, reinstall this screw and the one down there. Tighten it up. Install this push pin right here. Right there. If you have one right there, install that. And then these 2 as well. Remove the radiator cap if you didn't have it off already. I'm going to use a funnel. I'm going to use this adapter first. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it makes it a lot easier. Check your owner's manual so you can add the appropriate coolant. Most of the air has burped out. What you can do is squeeze some of the pipes, the upper radiator hoses, see if any more air comes out. And at this point, we're going to leave the level right there and we're going to start the vehicle. I want to turn the heat all the way to full blast. I can have it coming out the vents and turn the blower on medium. And I want to constantly check and make sure I get heat coming out of the vents. I want to monitor the temperature gauge, make sure it doesn't go above into the hot range. So constantly checking on that. And then I'm going to constantly check the level out here, making sure the level of coolant does not get too low. So it's been running about 10 minutes. My upper radiator hose is really hot, so that's good. The thermostats have opened. So my temp gauge is right where it's supposed to be, which is good. Right. So if you didn't have a lot of heat coming out of the vents, but the temperature was still okay, probably still have a little bit of an air pocket, what you can do is throttle the accelerator up to about 2,000 RPM, hold it there for a little bit. You want to constantly check the level outside. Maybe you can have a friend looking at that while you're doing this. Hold it there for a little bit and then you should be getting heat again out of the vents. When that's all set, at this point, we can shut the vehicle down and let it cool down. All right, at this point, I'm just gonna take the funnel off. There's a little stopper in for that funnel. Take the adapter off. Make sure the coolant is up to that level. You can put the cap on. And then check over on the reservoir. You're going to want to add coolant to the reservoir. It shows a line where it's hot, and then there's a line where it's cold. Adjust accordingly, and you should be good to go.